Awesome.
Yeah.
So I have read that this has been a program that's been operating for almost 20 years now, right?
Just about, yeah.
And both of you seem to be on the younger side of the spectrum. So you obviously at some point in time were children and then grew up and decided to be a part of this. What was your journey, Yasmin, in terms of wanting to get involved with Amachi personally?
Yeah, sure. So I've always kind of been in the nonprofit sector. I always loved working with youth. And so before this, I was working with the Epilepsy Association, where I also worked with youth, and I kind of just wanted to be on the same track of that. But I really do try to put myself in positions where I'm helping those that are underrepresented. And so we work with a lot of minority youth and things like that. And I really wanted to get involved. And because I'm not originally from Pittsburgh, I really wanted to get into a local organization and kind of get to know what the community here is like.
Okay, you want the long version or the short version?
Hey, it's a podcast.
The short version was that before working at Amachi, I was working at Pittsburgh Job Corps. So that was transitioning. But prior to working at Pittsburgh Job Corps, I was working at Falk Laboratory School, teaching social justice to middle school students, and then doing social justice programming for K through 5. And so while at Job Corps, the position for Amachi opened up. I was familiar with Amachi prior, and I liked what they represented. I liked the motto. The position seemed fairly well, and it was a pay increase from where I was at. And so I stepped in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's the short version.
Okay. I think that what Amachi is doing is really cool because so much of what I think like molds a person is their environment. And that's regardless of age, right?
Yes.
And the unfortunate situation is that for whatever reason, schools, regardless of whether it's public or not, don't really seem to always harvest the best environment for children. And I don't really know what that is. It's really unfortunate that companies like Amachi have to exist, but it's awesome that they do.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when, you were both growing up as kids in school, what was it like for you in terms of just feeling comfortable in your environment?
Right. Yeah. You want to?
Yeah, sure. So I was actually very fortunate to have a very tight-knit family. And so me and my big sister are very, very close. So she was always in school with me. And so I always had like my own mentor that was in a couple grades above. And I always had someone looking out for me in that way. And I can't imagine how my life would have been different had I not had that kind of buffer in between, whatever was going on with me in middle school or high school or whatever. And I think I just always had that kind of support system. And so when I was starting with Amachi and realizing that a lot of the people, many of the people don't have that support system, that made me want to get even more involved because I'm like, I know how much this impacted me and I want to give that to other people.
Yeah.
I was cool in school. Like I had no problems. I had good grades. I played 3 sports. I was all sitting in high school. I was prom king of my little tech high school I went to. Like school for me was cool. But what I realized in graduating was that, you don't ask the kid what's going on if they don't present to be a problem, right?
Yeah.
So nobody thoroughly questioned me like, well, what are you trying to do with college or this, that, and the third, or why are you doing that? It's just like, your grades are good, you don't have any problems, you're cool, get by, right? So the environment shaped me in the sense of I definitely learned how to get by. I learned how to read people. I learned how to navigate my space. But where a mentor kind of would have played a role was that to question you, like, well, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Like, I pick with kids like, okay, you got an A, tell me what you learned. And they'll be like, I'm like, so it don't matter, right? And so being with an organization like Amachi and working with youth how I have, kind of that driving force has been like, don't kind of just drift through this thing. At every point you're supposed to get something. So I can't say I didn't have a bad experience education-wise in school, but I will say that having that person or those people to kind of echo what either my parents were trying to say or, question why I was making certain decisions would have helped.
Yeah, I think that there's something that I'm noticing that seems to be a trend of people in our demographic and younger becoming more self-aware to like the power of empathy and understanding other people and understanding how environment's important. Mm-hmm. I would say my parents probably weren't having those conversations, and I don't know if their parents' were. Granted, the world was a much weirder time
my
Yeah.
in the
granddad,
50s
yeah,
or 60s.
yeah.
We don't got to get into that. We
My
all know what we're
granddad
talking about, right?
was
It was a crazy
sharecropper
time to
at
come
one
through
point.
that, right? And it all really leads to, okay, why does a program like Amachi have to exist? Because of parents that are put into situations that they end up incarcerated. And,
Mhm.
what is that, like, the empathetic viewing or approach to that, and trying to understand, like, how people get put into those positions, and now they have kids, and like what examples are being set for them. So in terms of Amachi existing now, when kids are coming into the program,
Mhm.
is there like a trend of things that you see that kids are interested in, or does it seem like there's a lot of kids that are just kind of like lost and they maybe find their interest through the program?
I can speak to that as far as dealing with youth and dealing with kids. Think about when we were kids, man. What, like, your influence was a lot based on your environment.
Sure. Yeah.
And at times you kind of had that one thing that you kind of did that maybe put you outside of the norm, but you didn't necessarily voice it and vocalize it, and you didn't always find champions for it, right? So when talking to a lot of the youth, they want to do podcasting, right? They want to do YouTube, they want to do music, they want to do sports, and it's like, that's dope, but that's their visual, right? That's what I'm saying, right? Pittsburgh is like the nursing capital where we got more nurses here. So you talk to young ladies, I want to do nursing, I want to get into the medical field, because you see that. And what you realize is that even for your smartest, most prepared youth, a lot of them are very much influenced by what they see. So with mentoring, it's like, how can we pair you with people just to get you to broaden the conversation, right? I was working at University Prep, and I remember talking to she was a senior. I asked her, like, what do you want to do with school? And she was just like, I don't know. She was like, I don't know what I don't know. She was like, nobody talked to me about college until this year.
Yeah.
Now everybody's like, I should know what to do with college and it's loan money. And she was like, I don't even know what career choices I want, because I know what's in front of me and I don't want that.
It's kind of an insane concept to think about how much pressure you put on a 16, 17-year-old kid to like figure out what you need to do for the rest of your life. And I don't know many adults that I could ask even today.
What are you doing
A
for the
lot
rest
of them
of
are
your
still
life?
trying to figure it out.
Like, listen, I'm making this money right here. I'm gonna save up. And then I move. Like, yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is a whole nother can of worms to get into, but I feel like the idea of like the modern education system is based on this weird ideal that people had 4 or 5 decades ago. That is just not what the world is now.
Right.
It's totally different. It's so weird. And like when I think about, I have family members and friends who have kids now, and like for a long time, I think I blocked school out and like what it was like, but now I'm seeing it again because I have friends that are going through it because their kids are going through it. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. You really have to do this? Like,
Yeah.
it's strange, but again, it just seems like such a weird focus on things that shouldn't be. I don't know, like American history and things like that. Like that stuff is important, but it's taught in a really weird way, and that really has nothing to do with Amachi at this moment. But in a lot of ways, it does.
So
in a lot of ways, it does.
This summer,
it does.
I got into that with students. So yes, it does.
Yeah.
So we have a branch of our program called our ambassador program. And the ambassador program works particularly with high school students 14 to 18. And in that, we do like leadership development. We get into politics. We get into critical thinking. We get into speaking. And Ling, who is our ambassador coordinator, does a great job of like putting that program together. I helped with it this summer. And so you do get into those conversations of like, why do we need to learn history? And you start realizing like, a lot of young people don't have context of what's happening. So, and I think when you talk about school, it's weird because a lot of the stuff we learned didn't have context.
Yeah.
Like I got up to pre-calc, right? So I was crazy enough to jump back into grad school. Somebody told me. Yeah.
Curiosity killed the cat.
And yes. But I had to stop and look up, why do we do calculus? And it was clear, it's like you do calculus to formulate systems so that you can better operate moving ahead. So you can recognize patterns and build systems. Now, when I was learning pre-calculus in school, we did not say that at all. It was just a bunch of letters and weird symbols. He just did it. And it was like, if you'd have told me, hey, You're doing this so that you can recognize a pattern, build a system, and be more efficient. But like, okay, that makes sense. But we just throw kids stuff and like get to the next grade and you realize there's no next grade in life.
Yeah, I don't even know if the word efficiency meant anything to me until I was like 24 years old.
Right.
You know, there's so many interesting, it's like, there's definitely things from school that I remember learning. And as I got older, I'm like, oh, okay, now I see the use of this.
Yeah.
But I don't remember it anymore.
Man.
Right.
Man.
I could have used this now.
Right.
There needs to be like okay, like maybe school stops at a certain point, but then maybe you go back in your 20s, like a nice refresher on life that we should all do.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's like this debate going on about like, do you really need 4 years of college because you end up taking these like prerequisites and like, is that even necessary for what you're going to do? And a lot of people don't even realize what they want to do until they take those courses they didn't want to take in the beginning, you know? And so I think that kind of ties into our kids. Like our kids don't know what they don't know yet. And so they don't know that they're interested in this one thing because they've never been exposed to it. They've never, talked about it. So that's kind of what our ambassador program is trying to do, kind of expose them to different kind of things. Because a lot of the times I will speak to, a 10, 11, 12-year-old girl and she says, I want to be a nail tech when I grow up. Cool. Nails are cool. You know what? But they also don't know that anything else exists because they're looking at nails,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those things where like I will talk to a kid and I'm like, oh, you're interested in this? How about the other day I interviewed a kid who said he wanted to be an eye doctor. And I said, well, cool. Why? And he says, I have glasses and I don't know. I think it's cool.
Right.
So,
kid logic. Man.
Right. And so I think with that, like we have to take advantage of the curiosity that these kids have at that age and kind of expose them to that, which is the whole point of us like pairing them with a mentor who may have those same interests so they can kind of like really learn about those different areas of life.
Oh yeah. Kids are so much smarter than a lot of people give them credit for.
Yes.
It's really, really wild. So in terms of Amachi, it seems like there's maybe a wide range of age of kids that come in to the program. How long does a kid typically stay in the program? What is it like getting a kid into the program? I know those are two different questions, but I'm curious about all that stuff. I guess we'll start with how does a kid go about getting into Amachi?
Okay. So we our mentoring program goes anywhere from 6 to 18 years old. And the only eligibility requirements is that they had to have had a parent in jail or currently in jail. And then how that works is I speak with the family member or the guardian. I speak with them separately, and then together we go over their interests, how they're doing in schools. With the family, we get a little bit more into what has the child experienced. So do they know their parent is incarcerated? If so, how much contact do they have with them? Kind of getting into those like very vital like pieces of information. And then once I talk to the child, we go more into like, how do you like school? And, what are your favorite subjects? What are your interests? And then we kind of come back together and discuss, what kind of mentor would be best for them. So the parents have preferences. We try to meet those preferences. And then we kind of just go into finding someone who would be the best fit for them. So there isn't really like a certain time because everyone's different. Everyone's relationship is different. We do ask for a minimum of 1 year commitment because we don't want them to have yet another adult come in their life and then leave rapidly. We don't want to, cause more harm.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how it works on that end. We have mentors who have been mentors with us for, 5 years. We have ones that are, brand new. So it really just, kind of depends on where we are with our numbers and stuff.
Yeah. How does like somebody like find out about the program?
Coming on your podcast.
Coming on the podcast. Fair enough. And the program itself now, is it more of like kind of like a one-on-one thing with mentor and the kid? Is there any times where like the kids get to interact with each other or?
Yeah, so that's actually what we're trying to get started now. So we do have events throughout the year where they all come together. Like we recently had a picnic in Frick Park and mentees got to know each other, but we're trying to get more of those programs going where the mentors can meet each other as well and kind of, bounce ideas off of each other. But it's mostly one-on-one mentoring. Well, it's all one-on-one mentoring, but we do actually have a program with Pitt going now where those kids are paired with Pitt Med students and they're exposed to the medical field. And that's, we're really excited about that getting started. But that would be more of an interesting kind of group situation where they still have that one-on-one relationship, but they have extra support systems if they need, be a faculty member, another med student, things like that. So it is 99% one-on-one mentoring, but we do have those little offshoots.